How many people here actually have used Claude Code personally? A lot. Wow, me too. Wow. So, Boris, you've described Claude Code as a kind of printing press moment. Can you talk about what you meant by that?
Yeah, if you think about what the printing press was, so go back like 500 years in like European history. Before the printing press in the 1400s, literacy in Europe was quite low. It was like 10% of people could read and write generally, and the people that could read and write were often professionals. So they were scribes that were employed by these like lords and kings and stuff. And at some point, Gutenberg came out with a press. And of course, this was like 700 years after like movable type in like the Tang dynasty. And what happened was just insane and something that no one could have expected. Because after the press came out, the amount of literature published in Europe in the next 50 years, there was more literature published than in the 1,000 years before. And the cost of a book went down like 100x over that same period. And then, it took a couple hundred years because institutions had to keep up and they had to learn and, you had to set up education systems and stuff. But global literacy went up, over the next couple hundred years to, like everyone here is literate, but we would not have been 500 years ago. And so, when I think about software and I think about what's happening right now with Claude Code, this is kind of the metaphor that I keep going back to. It feels very similar to me. Claude Code is democratizing people's ability to write software. And what does it mean if, in the past there were 50 million people in the world that could code, and now everyone in this room can code. Everyone in the world is starting to be able to code. And, for the printing press, this meant the industrial revolutions. It meant the Renaissance. These could not have happened without the printing press. And so, with everyone being able to write software, what does that mean? And I think we're only starting to understand the implications.
Right. There were also lots of religious wars in that period after the printing press, so hopefully we're not heading that way. Anthropic, you've talked about how you use Claude Code within Anthropic itself. You may be Anthropic may be sort of the closest to the ideal of the agentic organization at this point. How many AI agents do you typically manage on a given day, Boris?
It depends on the day. There's a lot of variance. So this morning I was managing maybe a few hundred. Some days it's going to be thousands or tens of thousands. Some days it's a few dozen.
How do you do that effectively? Because I think that's the thing a lot of people are struggling with. They spin up some agents, they don't really know how to manage them. And this is, I think, going to be a great skill set that everyone's going to need in the future. How do you manage, several hundred agents?
Yeah, so if you think back like a year and a half ago, everyone was running one Claude Code in one terminal window. And if you fast forward to today, it looks very different. You have a Claude Code, but it has sub-agents that are, other Claudes. And so what this means is that you are not prompting the Claudes, it's your Claude that is prompting Claudes. And actually, if you look at most Claude Code sessions and you look at most Claudes that are started, it's actually another Claude that does the prompting. And we just launched dynamic workflows, and this is kind of a way to scale this out even more. So if you want to run hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of agents, to do the most complex tasks, like giant code-based migrations, giant refactors, iterative profiling, things like this, then Claude can just do that for you.
Interesting. You've also talked a little bit about how each time you sort of automate something with Claude Code, you move the bottlenecks further along this kind of chain, and then you have to solve for sort of where the new bottleneck is. Maybe you can talk a little bit about how you've done that. You said initially, it was writing code that was really the bottleneck, then it was reviewing code, then it was security reviews. How have you solved each of those bottlenecks? And I think a lot of organizations, as they implement agents, this is becoming a problem, that they find they get a lot of productivity boost in one area, but it just pushes a bottleneck further somewhere in the process.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly like for everyone here that's run an organization, like this is a way to think about kind of production processes, right? Is like you find how the value is created, you find the bottlenecks, and you try to make it so you can reduce the cost of delivering that value as much as possible, which means kind of automating various steps along the way. So for coding, it's pretty clear. It's like the first bottleneck is the code, and Claude Code has automated this. I haven't written a line of code by hand in I think 8 months now. And Claude Code, Cowork, 100% written by Claude Code, coded in Anthropic. At our biggest customers, like all the way from like Salesforce and like NASA to YC startups, it's starting to become close to 100% written by Claude Code, and like the numbers are just kind of growing. And as you kind of get rid of coding as the bottleneck, so I don't have to do this anymore, my agents do the coding, what's the next bottleneck? Well, it's reviewing the code. And so for us at Anthropic, we thought pretty hard about it. We tried a bunch of different ideas. And the thing that we came up with is using Claude to do the code review. And the way we do it is essentially we have a team of Claudes. They all have kind of different personas, and they have different perspectives, and they essentially collaborate to review the code. And what we found is with this approach, we catch pretty much every bug. It's a really expensive code review. So essentially you throw tokens at it. It's like a test time compute thing. But as a result, you catch all the bugs. And obviously there's less expensive versions too. And so this is what we use internally for all pull requests at Anthropic. We use Claude Code Review. And essentially it automates code review. There's still a human in the loop that has to approve it, but Claude does the review. Okay, now you're running a lot of code. What's the next bottleneck? It's maintainability. It's security. It's all this other stuff. For maintainability, we have a bunch of routines that are running that are kind of iteratively improving the code base. For security, we have the Claude security product that scans our code bases every day, every week on a schedule. And all these products we build for ourselves first, and then we make available to everyone else, so everyone else can use the same thing that we are.
Great. I'm going to come to the audience for questions in just a minute, so please get your questions ready. I'll hopefully get at least one or two for Boris in there. Recently, Anthropic put out, just last week, I believe, or the week before, this blog post talking about recursive self-improvement and saying, we're sort of getting closer to that moment and saying, well, maybe it would be good if everyone could slow down a little bit. What's your own view on recursive self-improvement, sort of how, you're sort of the coalface of this. How close does it feel? Do you feel like already when you have Claude Code essentially writing the next version of Claude Code, you're kind of already there? And what does that feel like sort of inside Anthropic?
Yeah, so for people that didn't see this, we published statistics that the amount of code written at Anthropic has increased about 8x since the beginning of the year. And this is because Claude Code is just writing all the code. And obviously the increase is even more, if you account for last year and kind of like that deployment time for Claude Code. When I look at the Claude Code product itself, I think this might be the first product that actually just takes off, because it's fully writing itself, it's fully code reviewing itself, it's doing its own security review. We're starting to get to the point where it's able to come up with its own ideas. So it's looking at GitHub issues, it's looking at Twitter, it's looking at Slack, and it's figuring out like, what should I build next? And so many mornings I wake up and Claude already has some pull requests that it came up with that it verified end to end. It has screenshots for me. It kind of showed me how this works, and it already actually filtered out some of the bad ideas. So I'm left with the good ideas. So it's on the product side, it's quite exciting, because to me it means I can build much more, much faster, and it's just like the role of a builder is just totally changing. When you take it to the research side, I think this is where all the risks come in. And I think we just have to be very careful, and we have to take it very seriously.
Yeah. Are you concerned? Are you worried about how fast this is moving?
Yes.
How worried?
I mean, it's one of the big risks for AI.
Great. Yeah. All right. Let's go to questions from the audience. I'll come back. All right. I saw this hand go up first. Just wait for a paddle to get to you. The gentleman in the striped jacket here. Go ahead. And why don't you tell us who you are? Stand up and tell us who you are, and then your question, please.
I'm Vinu.
Yep, there you go.
I'm Vinu Ishwari with Biotech from Philadelphia. Boris, thank you for what you have done. I'm a cancer researcher by training, and we have been reinventing our company using Claude Code for the past 1.5 years. I also would like to say that the three beautiful words in English language are now dangerously skip permissions. People who know what I'm talking about. So for someone like me who's less than 10 people, we're trying to use Claude Code every day now to try to identify function of a disease by identifying gene function and all those things. So we are a small company shipping our production over 40 countries. What advice would you give to a small business like us so that we can continue using this system and compete with big companies? By the way, big fan of goals, the workflows that you just launched recently, and also Mythos, right, is coming up. How do small companies get access to that whenever it comes?
Yeah, totally. So like we've said before, there is some version of Mythos that will become available at some point soon. That's coming. For the other pieces, okay, so number one, I would not recommend dangerous mode. Because we put so much effort into making the model aligned and secure, because for a long time this has just been the focus for Anthropic. It's been enterprise and coding and security and trust. This is just for many years this has been the research direction. And so actually, if you look at the system card for Opus 4.8, it is the most aligned model we've ever built. And we have these evaluations of typical risks that come with dangerous mode. This is like prompt injection, for example. And Opus 4.8 is the least prompt injectable model in the industry. And we kind of show this with all sorts of evals. And you can see this in the system card. But still, I would not recommend dangerous mode because it's not perfect and it's not there yet. So the thing that I would recommend is auto mode. This works quite well. This is essentially the safer alternative to dangerous mode where it uses Claude as a classifier. And it's just a little safer. It's what we use ourselves. Beyond that, I would actually focus on what we just talked about. Like find the bottleneck, solve the bottleneck. And anytime you have to do a task, build a skill that will solve similar tasks in the future. So it's not just thinking about, it's a mindset shift. It's not just thinking about how do I solve this problem. It's how do I solve this entire class of problems and automate it using Claude.
Great. Let's get to another question. Paddle's right here.
Michael Schrag with MIT. First, also thank you. Sticking with your Gutenberg analogy, you're not just a printer, you're a publisher. One of the things you learn about writing is the different genres, the different forms of self-expression, the different audiences you're trying to reach. You're at the very cutting edge of discovering how do you take advantage of these kinds of intelligences. What have you learned about yourself as an orchestrator of intelligence and as somebody who wants to translate abstract thought to tangible outcomes and outputs?
That's a thoughtful question. I think one thing that I've learned is I'm just often wrong. I have all this kind of engineering intuition that I've learned just from years of building kind of scaled systems at big companies and small companies and so on. And a lot of these ideas actually don't apply. So a lot of the ideas about how do I build a scaled system, the ideas about how do I bring a product to market, the ideas of how do I structure the team and the process that enables this, a lot of these things we've just thrown out the window because Claude just changes everything. And the thing that we've done is we take Claude, we put it at the center of everything that we do, of every single process. And so, when new people are onboarding at Anthropic, if they want to file an expense report, they don't look it up in a wiki, they ask Claude, how do I file an expense report? If they're asking where's the code base, they don't ask their, an engineer on their team, they ask Claude, and Claude will tell them. Claude is just at the center of everything that we do. And what this means is we've had to rethink a lot of processes. So for example, I don't do design docs. I don't do big design reviews. I don't have a 6-month roadmap. I know a general research and product direction, but we try to empower the team and we treat everyone on the team as essentially a CEO. Their job is to talk to customers and to get signal and to figure out what to build next. And so we've just been rethinking every part of the engineering process. And it's been humbling. I've actually never been more wrong. I have to take a very experimental approach.
I want to ask a follow-on question on that. Given that you're a very experienced engineer, a real experienced builder, and you're finding, oh, my intuition's wrong a lot. How has it changed how you hire and who you hire for roles? Given that even somebody who's very experienced, it turns out their intuition may not be as valuable as they thought it was previously.
Okay, number one, we like generalists because they have context across more than just engineering. So we love people that have context across engineering and design, engineering and product, data science and design. The second one is low ego. So ego just gets in the way of stuff. You want to be okay and safe shipping an idea that might turn out to be bad. It's not your fault. It's okay to be wrong. And the third thing is we love empiricists. So people that are learning from the data and that are anchored to reality. I have a brilliant idea, but then I talk to a customer and they told me that I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong, and I should probably throw out that idea and try something else, and that's okay.
Got it. Let's try to get one more question in here. I saw some hands up front, maybe the lady in green in the front here. It helps to wear a bright color in the front. There you go.
Hey, Boris, thank you. I'm Kathy Pham with Revive Health. How do you think about, let's say your example of, instead of asking a manager, where's the code base, you go to Claude. Part of that is getting the answer to the code base, but part of it is maybe a new employee getting to know their manager. So I think about that with pretty much every single task we've built into AI. So what are the other things that come with that particular action that might not be just the result of that action. How have you all seen that manifest? How do you account for, let's say, maybe I don't ever have to talk to my manager in the first 3 months. I'm just going to go straight to Claude. But then that period was helpful for different reasons, right? And you can think of different examples that comes up as well.
Yeah, this is it's something I've actually heard from new engineers on the team, that because they're talking to Claude so much, they don't get a chance to meet the team as much. So something that we've actually started to consciously do is encourage pair programming. So you don't just pair with Claude, but you also sit there maybe with another engineer. On our team, we do a lot of social time. Because in this environment where we're actually wrong and our guesses are incorrect a lot, you have to feel very safe being wrong. And so what that means is we have to create this culture of safety on the team. And what this means is like everyone just has to trust each other and spend a lot of time together. So we actually just spend a lot of time getting to know each other as people. So you kind of create the environment where you can do good work.
Fascinating. Let's try to get one more question. This gentleman over here. Mic on?
Hello? Hello? Okay, cool. Hey, Boris. I'm Kahn. I'm the founder of Seda. You recently said, I don't prompt Claude anymore. My job is to write loops. So I was wondering, one, your best tips and tricks for loop engineering, and two, how you guys see security for loop engineering becoming different from security for prompt injection.
Yeah. So the security story, I think, is actually about the same. Because it's a little bit more autonomous without a human in the loop, you want to be a little bit more careful. Generally, what we recommend is use auto mode, use a sandbox. So we have like an open source sandbox that we provide as part of Claude Code that you can use. And use the latest model because it's going to be more aligned. It's going to be less susceptible to prompt injection. And then obviously Claude Code just has so many layers of defenses, like static analysis and other classifiers that do prompt injection detection and all this stuff. So it's just like a giant security stack that we worked on for many years now at the company level. I did this kind of fun exercise. One day what I did is, for the entire day, all the work that I did, I wrote down in a diary. And then I went through at the end of the day, and with colored highlighters, I highlighted what are the same tasks that I did. And so, for example, one of the things that I did is I put up pull requests based on user feedback. And so I highlighted those green. And then another task that I did is I had to babysit these pull requests. So like fix issues in CI and rebase them and just get them to actually land. And that was like a different color, and that was a different loop. And I had to do another task. Like I had to keep CI green. That was like a third one. So I just went through and did this kind of diary exercise, and these were the loops. So every color is its own loop.
Interesting. You mentioned, one of the things you've done is have Claude do the code review, do the security review, but that it's expensive. And I think for a lot of companies that are trying to do this at scale, they're running into that issue that, yes, they can do this, but can they really get the ROI given the cost? How are you dealing with that with Anthropic's customers, and how are you advising people to actually get ROI out of this and not blow through a token budget in 3 months and then suddenly be like, oh crap, like what are we going to do now?
Yeah, it's funny. When we first started approaching customers with Claude Code like a year and a half ago, people were like, man, this thing, it costs like hundreds of dollars, but I'm paying for this other AI subscription that's like $20 a month. Like, how's this different? And then, 6 months later, everyone just kind of realized, oh, okay, I guess it's not the same exact thing. I would think about it in two ways. One is, don't compare the ROI to your old coding products that you bought, because it's not the same thing. Compare it to what would the cost have been if an engineer did this work. That's the benchmark. That's what you should be thinking about. And so, for example, like Jared just rewrote Bun from Zig to Rust using Opus 4.8, using dynamic workflows. This would have taken probably a year of work before, and he did it in 6 days. We heard similar things from Salesforce. We heard similar things from Ramp, from Airbnb, from all sorts of customers that have done this kind of work. The second thing that I would think about is do internal shootouts and do internal case studies. So, for example, like, pick a project, give one team Claude Code, don't give the other team Claude Code, and then see which one delivers it faster. See which one delivers a more secure product, a more polished product. And I think this also helps build the ROI case internally. But I think the main advice is you have to shift the reference point to what would it have taken if it was an engineer that was
Right.
doing
So
all this
compare it to engineers, not other software. We're out of time, but thank you so much, Boris, for being here. I really appreciate it, and thank you all for listening.